everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We're going to get started in just a second. I see some folks in the back grabbing food. But if folks are not feeling too shy, we'd love to have people get into tighter groups towards the center, just because a lot of today's activity will be based on conversation in small groups. So the more grouped up you are, the better and easier it will be for you to engage. And it's already happening a little bit, so that's great. But just wanted to ask for some of that. Thank you.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. My name is Vanessa Rule. I'm the co-director and lead organizer for 350 Vermont, and it's so wonderful to see you here. And I would like to take a minute for us to think about the fact that we are gathered here tonight on Abenaki land. The Abenaki have been here for over 12,000 years and have stewarded these hills and rivers and streams and floodplains that we love. I'm going to ask you to take a pause from eating for a second and maybe close your eyes or lower your gaze and think about a place that you love in Vermont, a natural place. Conjure it up. And just look around. What does it smell like? What sounds can you hear? And most of all, how do you feel? And when you feel like you've captured that feeling and that sense of place, reopen your eyes. And I would invite you to join this conversation tonight, holding that feeling and knowing that we are collectively working to rebalance and rewrite our relationship to the land and to each other, and to the role that we play in helping the next phase of humanity to emerge at this really scary time. So, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Vanessa, for leading us in that land acknowledgement. Hi, my name is Andres. I am the new community organizer for 350 Vermont that gets to organize with amazing folks here in Addison County, like Sally and Susan and Roger and Carolyn and so many other folks that are involved that I'm not naming. But I'm just going to start today with a little bit of housekeeping for our group. As you entered, you saw the great amount of food. At any time throughout this meeting, please feel free to get up, feed yourself, get some salad. Laura, who's another node member, did such an amazing job of getting water for us and little fruits and snacks and just having the space open for us. And so just a huge shout out to CBUUS and Laura specifically for helping us come to the space. Let's do a little snacks. So there's food. If there's kiddos interrupting, let's embrace that. That's part of the space, right? That's the generation we're fighting for. Let us know if you don't want your photo taken. We'll have some folks taking pictures. And if there are any other accessibility needs, if folks can't hear, if folks are unable to see something, please feel free to raise your hand and just be like, I can't see or I can hear, and we'll address that as a community. And before I forget, I'm going to make sure that these next steps forms are going around the group. So we really hope that everyone can fill them out. They're great for taking notes on the back too. But we want folks to feel like they'll be able to find a way to get engaged with the 350 Vermont Addison node, which includes our meeting next Tuesday evening. And we'll be able to share more information about that. But by filling out this form, we'll make sure that we have a way to follow up with everyone who's in attendance tonight. And with that said, we're going to just do a quick walk through the agenda for today. We'll do welcomes, which we're kind of doing right now. We'll have some introductions and opportunity for folks to sort of break out into small pair shares and share with one another who they are, where they're coming from, sort of some of the big heart things that they're holding in this political moment that we're all navigating. We'll explore where we are now, which is vague, so just hold on to your seats. What can we do together? We want to hear a little bit about your thoughts as we enter this new phase of political action. action. We want to understand what folks are excited to engage about, engage around. And then finally, really going to settle into the next steps portion of what you can do with 350 Vermont and how to plug in to next steps. And so we'll hope you'll come away with a general understanding of where we can take action on climate justice in Vermont specifically, given the new political environment. Does everyone know what I'm talking about when I say new political environment? Or people heard about the elections? Yeah, great. So we're going to try to deal with that as a community. We also want to make sure that folks get to know who's in their community, right? Like, people who are here tonight are people who care about climate action, climate justice. And there's a lot more of us outside of this space, but these are the folks who are showing up tonight. And so let's connect with one another. Let's make sure we have relationships, know each other's names, know each other's faces, right? And then finally, clear next steps, ways to plug in, take action together. Sweet. So let's start doing some parent shares. So turn to someone next to you. It can be a pair, it can be little triads, ideally with folks that you didn't come with. And we're going to explore these 3 questions, right? Name, pronouns, the town that you're coming from. What's one thing that you're grieving right now? Which is a heavy question for folks. So engage with that as deeply as you want, as comfortably as you can. And finally, what are you hoping to walk away with today? Another way to say that is like, what brought you? Like, why are you here? So why don't we go ahead and do that, and then we'll do a little bit of a share out afterwards, and we'll start auto-populating things on our board. See, go. I'll give you all about 5 to 10 minutes. Awesome. All right, everybody, let's wrap up those last thoughts from your parent share. But don't forget what your partner is saying, because we're going to ask you to sort of share back what your partner said in a moment. So what's the thing, like llama, llama, drama, quiet coyote, right? Let's see how long it takes to get people to realize we're doing the llama coyote thing. Sweet. Cool. This is, I don't know, I learned this in like a daycare setting, like to get all the kids to be quiet. Not that I'm calling kids, but sometimes we respond in the same ways. Cool. Awesome. So thank you for doing a little parent share. I'd love to hear how folks are connecting to each other, and would love to hear reflections that folks feel comfortable sharing to the whole group. So if you heard something from your neighbor around what they're grieving, what they're hoping to take away with, or walk away with today, why don't you go ahead and shout it out? And Vanessa and I are Vanessa is gonna be writing them on the board for us. So just so we can, everyone can visually see what folks are holding right now in this moment.
I'll be the first to say that, report from my group that we sort of all agreed that we're unhappy with not having a female president.
Folks say that, unhappy, grieving, not having a female president.
A takeaway would be action items.
Takeaway.
Things to do.
Things to do. People want things to do today. That's a takeaway. What else are folks thinking? Jean.
Read in our group was that a 10-year-old needs to be worrying about this stuff.
Yeah, it's really depressing. I mean, it is. Sorry, I didn't mean to make a joke of it, but we shouldn't. Vanessa and I sometimes say that we shouldn't have jobs. We should be frolicking, planting gardens. We shouldn't be doing this, but here we are. Please, yeah. Want to share your name?
Sure. I'm Megan. I use she, they. And Robert, I think, put it really well for our group. I think we shared a lot of similar grief themes, but just the idea that we're grieving the loss of that belief that the government has our best interests at heart.
Thank you for sharing, Megan. Any other thoughts? Yeah, please.
We talked about the energy that comes from getting together with like-minded people, and then how that lifts you up, even when you don't think it's going to. So that's why we came, because we're terrified, and we just, it helps. People help.
Thank you for sharing. People help. Cool. Okay, we got one more comment, and I think we'll move on. Yeah. Could you share your name and town too, please?
I'm Maggie from New Haven. My partner and I both agreed that we're very worried about the environment in the next 4 years. All the gains that Biden was able to achieve, I think they're all going to get clawed back. My personal grievance is the way women were treated in this election, especially the horrible things they said about Kamala. And I think it's going to get worse.
Thank you for sharing. Cool. Yeah, we'll do one more.
Mari, Shide, Bristol. Even though I knew this, I think the realization that even more than I thought, there are so many more people that don't think the way that we do. So many more people that are misinformed and or don't care. And that really hurts.
Thank you. Sweet. I'm going to pass it to Vanessa, who's going to share a little bit about context with us today. Oh, well, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Just wanting to note, on top of all of our feelings around the climate, we're likely moving into a time of deep heartbreak, right? And so folks are alluding to that. Our environment, protecting our environment is going to get a lot harder. A lot of other things are going to get a lot harder. And we've been thinking a lot about what it means for our role in the climate justice movement, how we move together in these times. And so just wanting to make space. How are folks feeling? Right? We just did a little bit of heart space sharing in small pairs and groups. And invite folks to look around the room and remind you that this is the power that we have, is each other, right? And so if we can go to the next slide. Social movements that came before us, they're powerful reminders of what is possible. So here we're seeing civil rights movement, we're seeing healthcare reform movement, we're seeing marriage equality, we're seeing pipeline fights. And so like this room, this is where the energy is, right? And this is the power. The power is us, right? And so slowly building to that. I'm not trying to be giving out false hope that we're gonna win all the time, because clearly that's not the case. But the fact that we keep coming together, I think, is starting to tip the scale. So anyways, I'll pass it back to Vanessa. Thanks.
Thanks. And do you mind forwarding the slides?
Yeah.
Thanks. So we're just going to take stock of where we are right now, because it's hard to know what to do if we can't orient to what the reality is, and both the challenges but also potential opportunities. So raise your hand if you've experienced climate change in your own life. Okay. So I think we're all pretty clued into how dire the situation is and how important it is that we act. In terms of the political context, that as it relates to energy and climate and a lot of other issues, people understandably don't want to see increased costs. That's one of the things that we saw in this election in Vermont. Governor Scott won re-election with 73.4% of the vote, so he has a mandate. And I think one of the questions that we need to ask ourselves is, how is he on climate? The legislature lost its climate-friendly veto-proof majority, and so we still have a majority in the legislature, but it's going to be a lot harder to get things passed because the governor has a tendency to veto any energy bills that we like. And we know that they have dragged their feet on climate action and are now more powerful than the legislature. So that's the governmental part of things. And then in terms of the corporate power in Vermont, which we don't think about that much, it's actually quite powerful. We know that at a time where we're seeing unprecedented climate change and the need to act, we have Vermont Gas Systems that wants to upgrade and expand gas pipelines in this county. Burlington Electric Department wants to expand the McNeil biomass plant, which is truly as polluting as a coal plant right in the heart of Burlington. Our so-called clean heat standard, if it passes, will work to replace fossil fuels with equally polluting fuels. That's liquid biofuels, biomass, renewable natural gas, hydrogen. There's a new biomass to methane plant that's being planned for in the Northeast Kingdom. There are people up there trying to fight that. And then utilities have successfully advocated to remove financing for community solar last year, which is something we know communities care a lot about. So we have a lot of work to do. One thing we do know, okay, so that's the state level. Yeah, go to the next one. Thanks. And then before. Thanks. And at the national level, you've alluded to this, that there's going to be less money for the energy transition, a lot more money for fossil fuels. The person who's being appointed to the Department of Energy is a fossil fuel executive. And we will have fewer policies for this energy transition and, more green lighting of polluting fuels. And then at the international level, we are likely to withdraw from international climate agreements and will stop funding an energy transition for other countries, which is really heartbreaking for countries who've done the least to cause this. Okay, so that's sort of the bad news. And one of the things is we need to conserve. There's so many things that we can do, but a really important thing that we have to do is to bring a lot more solar and wind power online, because that's going to allow us to stop burning things. And so we have a success from last year, and I'm going to pass it to Peter Sterling from Renewable Energy Vermont, who's going to talk about that.
Thanks. Great, Peter Sterling, Renewable Energy Vermont. We worked in a coalition with 350.org and a whole bunch of other great environmental groups to pass a bill last year that would get Vermont to 100% renewable energy for about 90% of the state by 2030, making us probably the most aggressive state in the country to do that. So it was a pretty exciting victory. Even though she probably doesn't want to be thanked, I'm going to thank her. Mari is one of the people that voted for that bill. Thank you. And the governor vetoed it, and people like Mari stood up and said, no, we need to move forward on climate change. And this bill was the most significant bill we've passed probably in over almost 2 decades to get greenhouse gases out of the environment, equivalent to taking about 250,000 cars off the road by 2035. So it's not insignificant. So why we passed this bill? This picture on the right is a 60-acre, 360 megawatt natural gas facility in Dayville, Connecticut. When we don't use renewables, we get the marginal fuel source in our area is natural gas. 60 acres, for those of you who've been to Montpelier, I'm sorry, I don't have a Middlebury picture. If you've been to Montpelier, this photo on the left shows you what 60 acres is. It's from National Life down to the State House in that northern corner, all the way over to downtown to the library, back down to the Shaws, and way back over to National Life. 60 acres is not a little bit of land. Quick quiz. How many of these baseload natural gas plants are in Vermont? Someone shout. 0. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. 0. Every single one of the 60 natural gas plants that give us our marginal power are located in either a low-income or a minority community in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and I think there might be one in Maine, but basically they're in Massachusetts and Connecticut. And almost all the people the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who live near these plants do not really have the choice just to get up and move. So when we are talking about why we want to change the status quo, and you should meet people who said we should not be changing, this is what they're defending, Vermont getting its power from out-of-state natural gas. And I would just like you to think, when you're talking to your friends or the uncles at Thanksgiving who are cranky, ask them what part of Vermont they want to see 60 acres taken up for to build us a natural gas plant. Because if they don't want to look at a solar panel or a wind turbine. Where in Vermont do you want to put one of these? One, we would never be able to site one of these in Vermont. Okay, so getting to 100% renewable energy, there's a bunch of ways to do it. We definitely need a mix of some larger projects, 1 to 5 megawatt projects, on-site net metering, including rooftops and parking lots, community solar. When we're talking about the in-state requirement for this new renewable energy bill, because we want to build some power here, we're talking about 1,800 acres of land, throughout the state of Vermont given over to solar. It would be less if we built a wind turbine. And then in 2022, just to give you a sense of the kind of land use impact we're talking about from solar, about 45 acres of tree cover was cleared to make way for solar, and less than 100 acres of prime ag soils were given over to solar. So we're doing a pretty good job in Vermont of steering our solar development away from prime ag and forested areas. And I think most of you would see, you know, when you drive around, most of the land we're losing is really to suburban development. So from 2001 to 2016, 21,000 acres of ag land was developed for residential land uses. You know, that's the sprawl is basically what's gobbling up land, not really solar panels. So I think most of us, when we were designing this bill, believe we can put solar appropriate. We go, oh, that's cool. We can put solar, appropriately sited solar in Vermont scale areas to meet a reasonable part of our energy needs. Because at the end of the day, like I said, we don't want to ask people in Massachusetts or Connecticut to live in a natural gas plant. I'm sure we all agree we don't want to see any more lands flooded in Hydro-Quebec. No one probably wants to build a nuclear power plant anytime soon. And after that, there are not that many other options. One of the good options I think that gives me hope is offshore wind coming online off the shore of Maine and New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island, and we can get that. You can see some of the stats here. Massachusetts and Rhode Island recently contracted about 2,800 megawatts, enough to power 1.6 million homes. To meet our renewable energy requirements, we would probably need something in the area of 300 megawatts of that, which is nothing. Interesting fact I learned about one of these offshore wind turbines. One rotation of one of those big offshore wind turbines can power a house for a day. That's how much power they make out there. They're really incredible pieces of equipment, right? And once they're all online, I do believe it'll really help our region not only decarbonize, get off those natural gas plants, hopefully move away from nuclear, but I believe it's the way we move away from Hydro-Quebec. I think there's that much power available. So, can we just go back to that slide? So, okay. It's out of control. Okay. One more.
Okay.
There you go. So again, when we're talking to our cranky uncle at Thanksgiving or the neighbor or whatever, remember when they're defending the status quo, it's mystic natural gas. It's those giant tankers coming in natural gas, or we could have something like on-site solar and those wind turbines in the ocean. Again, one revolution of those, enough power to make a house go for a day. And to me, that seems like we have real good options in New England, in part because we've had legislators lead and make decisions that have helped us get away from fossil fuels and help make Vermont a 100% renewable energy future a reality for here in Vermont. So happy to answer any questions now or at the end, or what should I do? Oh, there are questions. Do you want?
Yeah, go ahead.
Should I keep them here? I'll pass it around because you all know.
Sweet. All right.
You referred a few times to appropriately scaled community solar.
Yeah.
What do you have in mind?
Okay, so
Wait, let me pass it back to you. Sorry.
So you can say, all right. So I think for most community solar arrays run in the 150 kilowatt to 500 kilowatt range. That's somewhere, and we have an expert in the room on this, is Steve Meyer, by the way, if you really want an expert on community solar, he knows a lot about it. And so,
She knows at least as much as I do.
Okay, well,
So she has an ulterior motive.
oh good, I love ulterior motives. So for folks in the audience, in Vermont, if you want to build a megawatt of solar, you need about 6 acres. So you could do about a 500 kW, which would, I don't know, what is that, 40 homes, 50 homes, something like that? You could do that on about 3 acres of land. Would you say that's about right? 50 homes in a 500 kW?
It's more like 80.
80?
80.
Okay, great. So I was, on the other hand, we have the ability to design a community solar program. We, the people, we can ask our legislators, we can make community solar into 1 megawatt projects. We just have to find more people to uptake. I mean, it's really up to us to design that. Oh, of course, it's your show.
Yeah, so definitely the siting is huge, and there are people working on that right now to talk about how to empower communities to decide where they want to build solar and how much they want to build solar. The reality is, I was talking to Thomas Han, who is somebody who really understands this stuff. He works at MGH Solar, it's impossible to build solar in Vermont right now. Forget about community solar. And his take on it is, community solar is an incredible privilege right now because it's so expensive. And, you know, his point is like, we just need to build an incredible grassroots movement that is telling our legislature and our governor to make solar affordable in Vermont. And then we can get to how we get there. And we need to say what we want. But the reality is, community solar has no chance in Vermont right now. And we have that 20%, and we need to get there. And we need the Public Utility Commission to change the rates on solar costs. And we need the Department of Public Service to get out of the way and actually let this happen. So that's really where we need to focus. Like, we would be lucky to have a problem with solar being built out in Vermont at this point.
To put a finer point on it, historically, the way community solar got built in Vermont was through the net metering program. And that's a financing program to help make it more affordable. And over the years, the Department of Public Service, particularly under Phil Scott, and the Public Utility Commission, which is largely appointed by Phil Scott now, has made it more expensive for Vermonters to access net metering. Probably about 8 or 9 years ago, the legislature voted to give away its authority to set this net metering price to the Public Utility Commission. I believe the time is coming, I think Vanessa, you'd agree, the time is coming for the legislature to take back that power to set the price of net metering to make it more affordable for Vermonters who want to access solar, not through utility scale stuff, because our regulators are not doing the job. And right now, it used to be that if you were a Vermonter and you wanted to put solar on your roof, you could make back your investment in 8 to 10 years. Now it's pushing over 15 years, which is meaning only the wealthier people can afford that kind of payback period, right? We need to bring, like Vanessa saying, bring the cost down, not only for community solar, but for people who want to put it where they live. And that might mean the legislature taking, action on that. Do I know?
See, there's one more question over here.
Hi, just real quick. How many revolutions a day does a wind turbine? Just like that's a really interesting statistic that people can understand. The one revolution is one house.
Yeah, I mean, it's hundreds.
Okay.
It's hundreds and hundreds. I mean, those things go.
Amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
One other point of information is that Thomas was sharing, if every Vermonter got one solar panel per year, we would reach our renewable energy goals in 5 years. So that's one way to think of it. Okay.
So it's just like, thanks, Peter. Yeah. Who else is like energized and like ready to overthrow the government to like get solar panels everywhere? Just kidding, we don't have to do that. But like, it's so simple, right? Like Peter is really articulating the possibilities when we're able to have power, and organized people are the people who sort of push their legislature, push their governments, sort of rein in that power. So how do we do that, right? That's the question. It starts by connecting with your neighbors, connecting with your community, building that push, right? And so the 350 Vermont Addison node meets every other week. We have a community here in Addison County that is actively trying to bring about some of the changes that we're talking about here. And so if you're part of the node, could you just raise your hand, do a little wave? So all of these people that are raising their hand right now are people that you can go to after this meeting, or me, or Vanessa, or anyone who's talking, and just being like, okay, send me the Zoom link, what's the email, when are you meeting? Like, this is how this change happens, right? This is how we create a meaningful sort of push for all of the really exciting solutions that Peter's offering. And we're going to talk a little bit today about what collective action we can take in our community, right, in Addison County specifically, but also want you to know that there are 350 Vermont nodes all over the state that are also doing this work. There's one in Chittenden County, there's one in White River Junction, there's one in the Northeast Kingdom, there's one in Rutland. Like, we are actively working in different communities, building for a campaign for a climate justice and a just transition. And when we take collective action in our communities, we build our power to take on something bigger and make bigger change. We're not doing this alone, right? There's a lot of organizations that we partner with. Most recently, I got out of a meeting with the People's Demands for Just Recovery, who are doing really important work in the Northeast Kingdom specifically, helping people muck their basements, but also like making sure that policy is setting up some reality for long-term recovery groups, people who are dealing with the brunt of the climate crisis in our communities, making sure that they have access, right? So these are the kinds of people that we at 350 Vermont really, really want to work with. And across the country, right, there's 350 Vermont sort of organizations in Wisconsin, in the Bay Area, in Sacramento, in San Diego. They're just, we're spread out and we're working towards this just transition across the country. But when we take action, collective action locally, we build something else too, right? The power of campaigns. Can I have someone from the group sort of read this quote? Is anyone really feeling really excited? Vanessa will hand it to them. You want to share your name? And
yeah, I'm Birch. I'm a Middlebury College student. I often compare great campaigns to great love affairs because they're an incredible container for transformation. You can change policy, but you also change relationships and people in the process.
Thanks, Birch. So what we're trying to do here is, yes, this campaign, right? But as a part of that campaign, making sure that we have solid relationships with our neighbors. When we take local action in a strategic way, we're building our power for something much bigger, but we're also building our power to be there for one another. The climate crisis is only going to get worse. Our relationships with one another are one of the ways in which we can create local resilience to the climate disasters that are coming our way. All right, let's all take a collective breath. Thanks for playing with me. We're going to do a little bit of breakouts now. I'm going to pass it to Vanessa, who's going to lead this for us. Thanks.
Okay, so you're going to have about 20 minutes. What's the time?
Right now,
Sure, yeah.
it is 17:47.
Okay.
Maybe
15 minutes. Just to talk about, I know wind and solar are not the only solution, there are many others. And so we really want to hear what you're envisioning and what you feel inspired by, because we can only do what people are excited to do. And also we have a lot of collective knowledge in this room. We don't have all the answers, we need to figure it out together. So one question we want to ask is, why is this happening? Like, why is it so hard to create change? How can we come together as a community? And if we're having a harder time with our state level government, because it's going to be harder to pass things, what actions could our towns, our business leaders, and other elected leaders take at this point in time? So you're going to have 15 minutes, and we have flip charts. We would like you to write your ideas down, and then at the end of the 15 minutes, we will post them around and have a little break. You can get food, and we'll do a gallery walk so you can see what other people came up with.
And I have markers for folks.
So in terms of breakouts, we'll let you self-organize. Just get together with a group of people and chat.
It's absolutely true, and I think, like, unless you're forced to like by a flood or a disaster, but if you can make a little bit, that's what I'm always trying to figure out. If I can make an hour in the evening, when I have only this much energy left, is that going to add up? That's my
All right. So we're going to come back to the whole group and share some of the things that are already going on. But keep all of these ideas in mind, because we probably need to do all of them. So if I could ask people to come back to the circle. That would be great. Okay. Hey, Andres. Okay. We really need to get going. Okay. Everybody ready to come back? Okay. So the question is, here we are, and it seems like you all had. I'm going to ask the folks who are still talking if they could rejoin the circle, please. Thank you. How do we figure this out together? And I just want to be really transparent that after I've been working on climate change for 18 years and have organized a lot of people, and we've tried a lot of things, and just want to be really honest about the fact that we don't really know how we're going to get there, and we really need to think differently, I think, and to really pull our resources and ideas and our collective innovation and power together. We can't wait for leaders who are going to tell us what to do. So as much as we have ideas and an approach that we think is relevant and useful, it's certainly not the end-all be-all. And so we need to really keep at it and do it together. So what can we do? So the first thing is movements are built out of relationships. We can't do anything by ourselves. And we know that there are a lot of people who are feeling isolated right now, who get their information through the media, social media, and we're not talking to each other. And so it seems like a really core thing that we must do at this point is to come together in our communities and work together. Not so we can talk about things, just do things together to start rebuilding trust and connection and getting to know each other as humans. So we want to really bring people together who've been pitted against each other in order to protect the status quo. We need to continue to grow our movement. We need to have more of us. Representative Cordes, just before she had to leave because she had a school board meeting, and she shared that a message for you all is that the legislature needs you to push them. And so that's going to take voters, it's going to take constituents who can have enough power to really get the legislators to feel like they need to act. At a time where we're seeing the Trump appointments, we know that we need to be incredibly focused on creating safety and resilience in our communities. We need to protect each other. We need to make this energy transition affordable and accessible to all. I think in this last election, climate change was seen as an elitist issue. And oftentimes the solutions around climate are developed by people who can, who have the time and money to think about it and who write policies, and they're very disconnected from what people need on the ground. And then there's a lot we can do in our homes and in our communities. So those are sort of the four sort of overarching things that we're thinking we need to be doing. And what does that look like? Well, it could look like local projects all over the state that both reduce greenhouse gas emissions, build community and resilience, create our larger tent, and build our movement to tip the balance of power to create the world we want. So people had a ton of ideas up there, and we thought of different categories, like we need to reduce our use, bring along everyone, we need to adapt to the changing climate, create networks of support, electrify and source our electricity responsibly, and we need to stop burning things. Or is somebody willing to throw out, one or two ideas that would fit into one of these categories that they talked about in their groups? Yeah, go ahead.
So, young man here asked a couple of very concerning questions. Negative consumption and the term pyrolysis came up. So that's burning in the absence of thermochemical conversion in the absence of oxygen. So if we can capture the carbon, reclaim the carbon that's already been done by photosynthesis, I would challenge the stop burning things because there's a huge amount of carbon already stored that we can turn into a recalcitrant form that has all kinds of other benefits. And I'll talk to anybody afterwards about it.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. We have some policy teams and sort of scientific groups that are looking at this stuff, and at this point, 350 Vermont is very clear that we need to stop burning things, and happy to talk and share information at some point and whatever, hear your perspective. Other ideas that people have for what could happen?
Hi all, it's Elio. For create networks of care and take care of one another, we were thinking through how to make it easier for folks to live dignified lives. And so what does that mean in the world of rent caps and eviction moratoriums and legal self-defense work to protect folks from ICE, and what does mutual aid networks look like, and thinking through, we have the tools to house people and feed people and keep them safe, so how do we make sure that that actually happens?
Great, thank you. What about, anything else what about bringing everybody along? Anybody have ideas? Yeah, go ahead.
Pass it to you. To bring everybody along, I think we have to address cost of weather station, electrification, that sort of thing, and the two things having to do with cost has to be upfront cost and then cost savings. I think we have to convince people that short-term and long-term, if we can address both of those cost problems, we're going to bring people along, because no matter who you are, who you vote for, money matters.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, go.
Along those lines, make it easier. So right now, there are a lot of hoops you have to jump through. I would like to reduce my electricity use, but I rent. And I have asked for assorted help. Right now, Efficiency Vermont is willing to do a video walkthrough. I don't need a video walkthrough. I have a stone foundation. I know what needs to be done. I don't have a contractor or a plan from Efficiency Vermont that says, these are the steps that you go through to get reimbursement, to deal with a very Vermont problem that lots of people need to solve. They haven't given me that set of things to do, and helped contractors be available to make that happen.
Yep, and I think there are people in this room who are going to talk about that later from SEAC.
Absolutely.
Yeah, about really helping people do that. So, are you part of SEAC?
No.
Okay.
I didn't have answers for you.
Okay. Oh, okay.
They're working on it.
Okay.
They're working on it.
All right. So we talked earlier, and we're going to hear about from the people who are doing the work in Aston County, but just in terms of sort of how we're thinking about this, you can get your towns and campuses to lead, right? Like the legislature, we really need to push, but again, we still need to hold down the line, and there are some things that we can do, like lay the groundwork for thermal energy networks. We're going to watch a really short video about that, and you'll hear about an effort that's taking place in Middlebury, actually. Plan for siting solar. So right now, there are actually towns in Vermont that shall not be named that have used their energy plan to site solar in places that are not viable as a way to keep solar out. It's important, like the people who don't want solar in Vermont, they're really good at showing up at Public Utility Commission meetings, and they're super proactive. We need to start showing up and saying we want solar, we want solar, and we need to think about yes in my backyard, as opposed to no in my backyard. And you can, work with your energy committee in your town to look at, do you have solar siting? You could have a community forum to talk about, if you're gonna have a part of your town supply solar, where would that be? We believe that, fossil fuel companies right now are working really hard to replace fossil fuels with biofuels. That's biomass, that's burning trees, liquid biofuels, and renewable natural gas. Middlebury, I think, has a renewable natural gas contract with Goodrich Farm. The state may allow this stuff, but towns can actually decide not to do that. So the town of Williston right now, they're working on the energy committee has approved an energy plan that would ban those things to help decarbonize buildings. So we can, demand that our local elected officials in our towns do this. And then we want to roll up our sleeves and help each other out. We need to reduce energy use. 10 years ago, I lived in Massachusetts, or 15 years ago, and we did these weatherization barn racings where on a Saturday, 30 people would descend on a house and help caulk and, put in window dresser frames and all sorts of things. And it actually helped the person living there. People built skills and we built community. It was a great time. So those are ideas. Already talked about yes in my backyard. Can you put it back for a second? This is the solar area of my road, and we really just need to show up for that. Okay, we're gonna watch this video. This is this really cool technology that I've learned about recently. Yeah, is there some?
I'm realizing we might
Here, we can do this like what we did in Rutland. You wanna make it bigger?
second y'all.
Here in Vermont, heat is a precious resource. We put a lot of time and effort into staying warm in the winter. And we pour a lot of energy and money into making, moving, and saving heat. Meanwhile, all kinds of heat is available for us to capture, move, and share to keep our homes and communities warm. This heat is right under our feet, not far underground where the sun's energy warms the earth to a constant temperature. It's also venting from large buildings like hospitals and hotels, from grocery stores, ice arenas, factories, and breweries. And it's flowing down drains and out of our buildings, carried in the water we warm up and use every day. Luckily, it's not hard to recover that heat and reuse it in thermal energy networks. We can find the temperature we need underground at about the depth of a water well. We can also harness it from building ventilation or wastewater. This thermal energy is carried to our homes and businesses by water and a network of pipes. Vertical pipes access heat from underground and return unwanted heat to the earth to be stored as needed. Horizontal pipes not only share heat between buildings, they also capture the heat that's venting from buildings and flowing in wastewater systems, adding it to the network. These pipes form closed loops that move heat where it's needed. Inside, a ground source heat pump amplifies that temperature for heating and hot water. In the summer, the heat pump ejects heat back underground to make buildings cooler, storing that heat for next winter. Using existing heat means less drilling, making thermal energy networks more efficient and cost-effective. An ice rink in Vancouver provides heat and hot water to nearby buildings, the equivalent of 43 homes, by sharing heat that's removed during the freezing process. Maintaining the ice rink is now 2 to 3 times more efficient and dramatically reduces fossil fuel use. Another neighborhood in Vancouver is cutting greenhouse gas emissions from buildings in half and meeting about 70% of its heating and cooling needs by recovering heat from a wastewater treatment plant. Lake Louise Inn has cut its propane use by 60% by using wastewater to offset how the resort heats hot water for laundry and guest services. Thermal energy networks are community infrastructure, much like water and sewer systems. We have familiar ways to provide these services that also apply to delivering clean heating and cooling. Thermal energy networks also complement other clean energy solutions. Many Vermonters are installing air source heat pumps as an important house-by-house way to heat and cool efficiently, save money, and lower emissions. In town centers and new developments, we can install thermal energy networks as a community-scale solution to help more people access and afford clean energy. And we can pair thermal networks with solar to supply local clean electricity to run the system. Experts in clean energy, finance, policy, and planning are working with state and local leaders, businesses, and community members to implement thermal energy networks and help more Vermonters across our state access affordable, reliable heating and cooling.
Okay, so that's a really cool solution, and we're going to hear about that in a minute. Were there any other solutions? Oh, another thing in Addison County.
Sure, and I think we have resident experts, Jane and Nate, if folks want to connect with them a little bit more about the Addison natural gas pipeline, but we'll just add a local issue here in Addison County, includes continued desire to expand this pipeline from Burlington all the way to this little paper mill in Ticonderoga, and as of 5 days ago now, we had another leak. I'll read the tweet from the City of Virginia's Fire Department. Good morning, busy day in the city. The department has had 3 calls so far today. Currently, we are operating at a natural gas line that was damaged during construction. Limited evacuations and power outages may occur while the department and gas company isolate the risk. So we're seeing how unsafe this is for our communities. And again, point you to Jane and Nate, who have been fighting this pipeline for over a decade now, and it highlights the importance of needing to hold our corporations accountable, public utilities accountable for false solutions for energy and heat. Sweet. Vanessa talked a little bit about this earlier.
Yeah, so we already talked about that. Work with your municipality to develop really good energy plans, and then the getting information to other people. And so maybe I'll turn it to Jean, and you can talk about that piece, and then we'll have Sally talk about thermal energy networks in terms of what is already happening.
You want to come up here?
Bear with me. I couldn't integrate it in, so this is how we're doing it.
Hi, I'm Jean Terwilliger. I'm on the board of the Climate Economy Action Center of Addison County. And we are here to prevent this kind of future as much as we can. We have already seen some of these changes coming around, and the Action Center has been producing a greenhouse gas inventory and also done a climate action plan for Addison County specifically. And you go ahead. Out of that, one of the first things that came forward is the need to address all of our buildings. And so, as has already been addressed here, electrify everything, stop burning. Fossil fuels is really where we need to go. And a lot of these decisions about where we get our fuel from are kitchen table decisions. What happens when you need to replace any of the systems in your home? The natural thing is, just put in, and what the plumbers and HVAC people will do is replace exactly what's there, because it's a crisis moment. And so how do we change that situation? And so, that's getting cut off a little bit, but so we've heard from a lot of people that it's just too complicated, and we don't know how to get started, and we don't know what's out there. And so we have created the Energy Navigator program. We're rolling it out now. There's some brochures and other literature out on the table out there about ways to connect. But we have visited dozens of people in their homes now and are helping them create that plan and connect them with all the resources out there. We met with somebody in the past few weeks, and when I put together, now, whether all of the resources stay in place is a big question, but if all the resources stay in place, there is $42,000 available against $45,000 or $48,000 worth of work in this person's home. So because they're of modest income, we can actually get close to $50,000 worth of work done for $5,000 out of their pocket. And so that's what we're trying to help people do, is connect people with all that stuff that's out there. We're not talking about just climate. We know there's a lot of different concerns people have, and so we're trying to talk around all of those things. And addressing the home as a system is really critical, and we're focusing on the big impact things: heat pumps, electrifying systems, and cars and that kind of stuff. And QR code there, website info out front.
Sweet. Thank you so much. We're gonna pause. Make sure folks take a picture of this. And then I'm going to pass it to Sally to share a little bit about thermal energy networks. Here's another contact info sheet if folks want to snap a quick photo. Or again, we'll stay afterwards and we can make sure that everyone has the proper information. We're running a little bit low on time.
And for all the Middlebury students here, I just want to acknowledge that some of this stuff you can't do, but I think one question for you is, what is your college doing? And how can you organize? So hopefully you're thinking about that. Like how, yeah.
Sweet, here you go.
I did say there are lots of opportunities to volunteer with us, whether you want to be a navigator. We're trying to set up some of those kind of weatherization projects, so yeah. Great.
And then we have to stop the pipelines.
So I guess I just want to say, since Susan was going to be the one telling us, I'm just going to give a quickie, and that is, Debbie New has been going around the state working on this with communities and trying to help people understand what it's about and get going. And in Middlebury now, there are about 3 to 4 areas where they're really looking into it. And the 4th one was the library, since that's going to be rebuilt. And so they're checking to see what the ground can handle and stuff like that. And different groups around the co-op is one, around the rink and Shaw's is another. Down on Exchange Street, there are a number of buildings that are, getting rid of a lot of waste heat, and others who need energy. So all those are being looked into, and it's really exciting. So I think that's all I'm going to really say. I would love to hear anything from the college students about what they're interested in.
Yeah, that would be great.
That would be awesome.
Can we put them on the spot?
Yeah.
Okay, Ella. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Ella. I am a co-manager for the Sunday Night Environmental Group at Middlebury College, and we've been doing work with 350 since last December. They came and had an event about their campaign last year as well, and we've really appreciated their support with Middlebury things as well. But this year, I think we've been looking more at like the energy systems of Middlebury College. We've been trying to get ourselves educated on how our school is heated and cooled, where we get our electricity from. We had Dean Ouellette, who runs our HVAC system, come in and give a presentation to SNAG and learned a whole lot about the heating and cooling of our buildings. We had a tour yesterday of the biomass plant, learned a lot about where a lot of our steam and heating and cooling comes from with that as well. And yesterday I think was a really enlightening conversation that we had. and I'm really excited to share it out with our larger group. We only had a couple of us on the tour, but I think Middlebury is in like a unique position that because everything is like very student driven, the biomass plant was very student driven 10 years ago, and now like they are looking for the next option. Like with Energy 2020 coming close to the end, they are needing a new energy option, and the school has started some geothermal like test wells. There's one on a dorm that's about to get renovated. And from what I've heard from like architects and engineers, it seems to have been going well. I was talking to Neil Durda, who runs the biomass plant yesterday, and he was saying that it'll take years for the infrastructure to change, but he doesn't see it as impossible. And yeah, the school I think needs the next option, and I think it's just going to take some pushing from students again.
Awesome. Really honing in the message of the importance of people power in organizing our institutions and legislators and whatnot. Amazing. Yeah.
So the last thing we'll say is all that local work is critical because that's where we build relationships, we can make tangible change, we can push our decision makers locally, and we cannot forget about the legislature and the governor. And so this is, can you go back for a second? This is from the Next Steps March. How many of you participated in that, the Next Steps March a while back? Nobody here? Yeah. So people walked up, I think, the path of the pipeline that was going to be built in Addison County, and it took days and stayed in churches and whatever it was. I wasn't around. The Climate March, yeah.
I was there. I just
You couldn't.
when you said the next steps, I was like, oh.
That's how we talk about it on staff. But anyways, so this was toward the end where people were walking after having, walked for a long time to the State House. And we need to keep getting our state leaders to follow us. So what we're doing now is we're going to lead in our communities, and then we need to turn around and say, we need you to do this. Some of the things that we're working on, we already talked about solar earlier. It needs to be affordable. Rental registry. It's really hard right now to ask landlords to do things because we don't even know who they are. And so Rights and Democracy is working on creating a rental registry, getting a bill passed so that we can start mandating to landlords that they take action. And then last but not least, it's hard to believe, but we actually have a legislature and a governor at this point that's talking about changing the goals of the Global Warming Solutions Act because the state is having a hard time meeting them. And so instead of saying, oh, we need to take more aggressive action, they're saying, well, let's change the goals. So when we talk about the legislature this year, we need to protect what's in place. Obviously we need to try to do more, but we need to really build the kind of movement that we need for 2 years from now when the governor is running for a re-election or somebody else is running for governor. So we need to build that power locally, get a fire started, a really good people-powered fire, and then we need to make sure that the things that are in place don't get dismantled. And the final quote before we give you next steps forms for you to think about where you might want to contribute is this quote from Audre Lorde: "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives."